I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought and died just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role.
Oh, well, now I'm here. Ta-da! Look at me. I blinked in
Yeah.
like I dreamed of Genie.
Hello, and welcome
Hello.
to Season 34, Episode 8 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy.
And my name is Vixie, your friendly neighborhood host at the table today.
Yes.
Whee!
In today's episode, we are talking about Gen Con. Both Vixie and I just got back from Gen Con. It was both of our first Gen Cons, so we have a lot to say about it. And then we have emails. Alvarant asks about how you should feel about your gaming group. And Thomas from Denmark asks about RPGs in the classroom. If you'd like to contribute a question or story to the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com, or you can post in the mailbag channel of the Discord, and that's happyjacks.org/discord. Announcements. Starscape funded! Yay! It took all summer. I feel like I got no summer break as a teacher, but we did fund. We funded it, I think, at the exact time of the campaign closed, I think we were at like 220% funded, which is amazing. And then we've gone up a little bit since then. I have activated late pledges, which are a thing now on Kickstarter. I totally did research ahead of time and knew that. I did. So it's amazing. You could go now and still, if you wanted to opt in, not all the options are still available, but there are. And there's also add-ons. So if you backed it and are like, hey, I want those cool dice after all, or whatever, you can do the thing. So thank you, everyone. As always, I couldn't have done it without the Happy Jacks community. You all have been amazing through all 4 years of like, hey, I have this weird idea to, hey, here's some mechanics to, let's play test this forever. And then like... and then just like cheering me on. And it, like, I love you all, and thank you so much for all your support on that. So we're starting next steps. You can go check out the Kickstarter page, goldenlassogames.com/Kickstarter, still redirects, and then we'll do updates on the process and all that stuff. So very exciting. Our next game days will be in September. Join the Discord at happyjacks.org/Discord to vote on the day and to run or play games. I'm going to put up that poll, I think, probably tonight or tomorrow. So it'll be one of the Saturdays in September. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to have our next game days happen. And if you don't know, game days is our community run kind of free, fun gaming day where people run stuff of all different types. We have such a diverse community with like such a diverse interest. We have really trad games sometimes that run and really wild stuff. We've got play tests. We have people like doing weird things with games that they weren't written for that, but it always ends up fun. We've had like very lyric games happen. We've had people design games together. It's amazing. So fantastic stuff happening. And that will happen sometime in December. So you go to the Discord, join the Discord if you haven't been there before, and vote on which day you can make it so that more people can play. Yay! Indie Designer of the Month. Our new August Indie Designer of the Month is Jacqueline Brick. They, Faye, and you can find them at Rufflejacks. That's rufflejax.itch.io, or you can search for them on DriveThruRPG. This week we are discussing a LARP that they've written called Skeleton Song. Trigger warning for serial killers and women victims. Here's like the little like intro. They haven't heard from you since you went missing. Your voice was snuffed out or added to the background noise of the killer's glamour. You became part of him, part of his past, his present, and his future. Your name was on the front page. You were a victim with a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When they caught him, your killer's full name was splashed across the front page too, along with smaller pictures of the rest of his victims. They wrote hundreds of words dedicated to his motives, what he wanted, why he wanted it, how could such a monster exist among you all, and you were regulated to his kills, to his trophies. he captured the public imagination. So, Skeleton Song is a feminine horror LARP about reclaiming your personhood in the face of someone who wants to take it away, even beyond death. It requires 5 players and takes 2 hours. You can get it for $6 on rufflejacks.itch.io. So last week also had like a ghost and like post-death based game. So Rufflejacks, she really likes her kind of
Like a
creepy, little morbid, but also like amazing and fantastic design work. So awesome.
A motif, if you will.
Yeah, there's a vibe there. We've got vibes. It's all good. A brand. So
A brand,
yeah.
yes. That's it.
All right. Yeah. So Gen Con.
Oh boy.
First off, both Vixie and I managed to make our Constitution saves, and we both made it back from Gen Con safe
Yes.
and without carrying any viruses. So that's
Yes.
very exciting.
I failed the deck save though. So I came back with a sprained ankle and a bruised knee, but I did not get COVID.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, it was wild. It's interesting because I've been doing like large conventions for so long, but as like a cosplayer. So it's a very, very different experience. So Gen Con is spaced out in a way I've never seen a con spaced out. Like there's like the main convention
Yeah.
hall, and then it's got like these long, like, keep thinking of like a flower or something where there's like the center of the flower and then the petals that go out, and there's all these events at different hotels around there in a way that's like SDCC and stuff, they spill it into the hotels around there, but not as much. There's like huge sections and like major companies in these like farther hotels, which was, I was not ready. I didn't really realize that until I got there.
Oh yeah. One of the panels I went to, it was like we were journeying to drop the ring into like Mordor. Like you might as well
Yeah.
have started the theme music because you had to walk like several blocks. We went to the wrong hotel, had to like redirect. It was interesting getting to certain points of the convention. And I think over by the Crown Plaza there was construction. So there was like it was really hard to access.
It was so hard. Yeah, there was construction going on everywhere, which I think is going to be good in a few years because, like, it seems like they're really updating that area. But for right
Mhm.
now, it means like there's whole blocks that you have to like walk the long way around because you can't walk through these buildings they're building from the ground up.
Mhm.
So that was wild. And I just usually like big players have like space in the main convention center at these cons. Like you would never go to a convention like for like Comic-Con. You'd never go there and like have like Dark Horse be in like a hotel like 3 doors, 2 blocks away or things like
Yeah.
that. Like I mean, like obviously there were the big like Montecook and stuff had their big rooms in the main convention center, but Magpie had their whole thing like in a whole nother section. Well, I know Magpie is like still kind of indie. They're a pretty big company to not have any stuff in the main hall.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've got pretty lost in the dealer's room because it's vast. I was like, wow, this is a lot. It was when we went to like I'm kind of like one of those weird ambiverts that like I can be extroverted, but it's until my social battery dies.
Hmm.
And I feel like Gen Con is like this is a lot. It is sensory overload. Because there's so much to do and see, and you kind of want to do all the things. But you can't. You
Yeah.
have to figure out which things to prioritize, right?
Right.
So, and just running panels was interesting too. I was actually pretty happy that I think all of my panels, all of my events except for one, were in the main building.
Hmm.
The only other one that wasn't was actually in the stadium, the Lucas Oil Stadium.
Right. The
Uh,
stadium like
yes.
baffled me. Like I was so lost. I couldn't find it for like the first day and a half because I kept trying to go out there and visit MythWorks, which had like their gaming
Mhm.
room out there. And I just kept going the wrong way, and it was like it was wild. I have a terrible sense of direction anyway, but especially like when there's a bunch of construction and stuff happening and I've never been to a thing before, I'm just like, I am so lost. I'm just gonna stop and like have these enchiladas at this Mexican food place, and I'll just wander back eventually. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah, and it was, well, the weather was also very warm, so any kind of cosplay was just your we had it was funny because I felt like the little, like how you see the little Asian ladies with their umbrellas and stuff in the sun. We
Mhm.
actually did that. Like I was like, yeah, it's time to do this now
Yeah.
because it was very warm because we were waiting in the food truck lines and it was just, there are no trees here. So
There were none, and it was very humid. More humid.
mhm,
Like I mean, I'm in California, so like I also like am a baby about such things. But I've been to a lot of conventions. I've been to places where there is a high humidity. The humidity
mhm,
just was really specifically high. I think part of it had to do with like the hurricanes that were kind of rolling in and stuff in
mhm.
different parts of the country. But
Oh,
yeah, I was
well,
looking
I
at
look,
cosplayers, and I was just like, wow, I've never been more happy to not be one of you than I am today.
yes, I was, well, see, I'm in Florida right now and it was funny because I was like I was born and raised here and it was humid even for me and I'm not a baby. Usually I'm pretty tolerant. I was like, "Oh, I'm dying." And, fortunately for me though, my flight wasn't delayed getting back. So,
Yeah.
everyone else screwed.
Yeah, I was lucky. I got out there before, like the night before. So a lot of people were like, I was home, like just waking up the next morning and looking at people like stuck in airports. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of people's flights got delayed, especially if you were flying internationally. A lot of people got really screwed by the weather.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
was.
I mean,
Yeah, good.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Gen Con was definitely a fun experience. And I mean, I was a grant recipient, so I got to meet a bunch of industry people. I got to meet people from Paizo and Green Ronin. I also got to meet the convention organizers as part of like this welcome brunch that they did for us,
That's so
which is
awesome they
really
did
cool.
that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a great place to really meet people and to get to know people. And you never know who you're talking to. I have a funny story. So myself and one of my friends that was with me, because we were doing an actual play, so a lot of us had also were all attending the convention to do this actual play. We saw this beautiful woman in like this beautiful like straight up this green memorable green jumpsuit. It was so fashionable, so it was verdant, like it was just this shade of green that was eye catching. And I'm like, man, this lady looks a lot like Anjali Bhamani. And my friend was like, yeah, yeah. Do you think that's her? And I was like, I don't know, but we shouldn't be creepy about it, right? We kept walking, and then it turns out that it actually was her. And we're like, oh, we're so dumb. You should have said hello.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's funny. People just walking around and stuff like that, and um, like just the booths you'll walk by and be like, oh hey, that's and it was fun because I got to meet some people that I haven't gotten to meet in person, like Lloyd, who's GM'd a couple games for Happy Jacks, and also has been part of the community for so long. We actually finally got to meet in person. So we
yeah.
like hung out and then it was like way too late at night. It was like we were exhausted. It was like the last night of the con. We finally
Mhm.
were able to get our schedules synced. So that was super neat and hanging out with a bunch of like indie designers. Like that was amazing too. Like I was really tired the night of the Ennies, so I was running a
Mhm.
little late. So I'm like sneaking in the Ennie back door at the end of. That sounded so wrong, but anyway, sneaking in. And what they is not clear when you watch the Ennies online is that it's attached to a bar, and
Yes.
so basically, I just decided to hang out in the bar. And slowly but surely, like all these people started coming over and talking to me, and it's like a bunch of our indie designers of the month. They're like, "Kimmy, are you Kimmy?" And because I'm wearing a mask and I'm like all
Mhm.
like careful, and that people are, and I was like, "Yes," and they're like, "Oh," and so I like got to hang out with Brian and all these people who I've met in like virtual, like we're talking now, and like they, I don't know, it's just amazing to talk to all these people, and a lot of them were talking about how like they really appreciate the indie designer of the month thing and things like that. And I don't know, it was very like rewarding to like to see all these people in person and like also get to introduce a lot of them to each other, which has been awesome. So like I got to like Sydney Icarus, who hung out with you a whole bunch, and who, yeah, and who was on the show there's episodes ago from Strategicon, um like was there, and like we got to introduce them to a bunch of people. And I don't know, it was
Yes.
just so fun. Like that's one of my favorite things is like it like some people play like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or something. My collecting game is collecting cool people in the TTRPG space and then like trading and introducing them to each other. so that they all become friends. Like that's my favorite thing.
Yes. I mean, we got to have a whole conversation about like nerding out in design and different companies and
Yeah.
like what they're I love like having just sitting I kind of love just sitting there and listening because it kind of gives me perspective just as a content creator and like, oh man, this is so cool like to listen to it from this perspective. Also, congratulations to MythWorks Publishing who got a silver Ennie
Yeah.
for CPR plus
Woo.
PNK,
Yes.
which I was really happy about that. I was like, yay.
Yeah, a bunch of great ones. And
Yeah.
Brian worked on a project that got an Ennie too.
Yes, Kobold Press also won an Ennie. And then I was working with MythWorks Publishing, which is why I'm like hyper
Mhm.
focused on them. My actual play was of The Wild Sea by some guy named Felix Isaacs. No, Felix Isaacs. I actually got to meet him in person. Such a sweet guy.
I know. I
Or
finally got to meeting Felix in
yes,
person is very odd. Like it was like
yeah,
it was also like at the point of the con where people were either getting more ramped up and excited or like about to die. So
yeah.
I feel like I hit Felix at the about to die. He's like, hello. And just got like, it was super quiet. Everyone else is talking. And then he's like, I think I need to go. I need to go back to my hotel. I was like, okay, bye.
Yep.
But it was
Yeah.
really fun. It's also one of
Saturday
those.
was a day.
It was such a day. So it was really fun though. The getting a bunch of game designers, like indie game designers, who all like really weird random rule sets and things, and have very philosophical opinions about game design, and getting them all drunk at the side of the Ennies when they're supposed to be quiet.
Yeah, it's
Definitely is an experience. I don't know if it's a good plan or a bad plan, but I had a blast. I hope they had a blast, and I hope they'll let me into the Ennies next year.
I'm pretty sure they will again because the Ennies was you had the side of people that were actually like sitting down paying attention and then the other side of people that were just at the bar having a good time.
That was
So
us.
and also listening, but like
Unfortunately, like when I went there, like the bar was empty when I walked in there. Like, cause it's like there's not a
Mhm.
wall. Like if people can like picture, it's sort of like it used to be a big train station, I guess. So they turn it's
Yeah.
like this big center section, which is very reminiscent of like a church, like with the way it's very high ceilings and stuff, but it was for like trains to drive through there.
The old like
Um,
opera house theaters back in the day is what I thought of when I
yeah,
like
yeah,
sat
yeah.
down.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. So beautiful. I was like, I just assumed because I've only ever watched the live stream that it's like some like, like hotel ballroom or something, but it's this stunning like historical building. And then it's kind of
Yeah.
got like these little wing rooms off to the sides that
Mhm.
have like pillars but not actual walls. One of those is like just where they do like, I don't know, other stuff. And the other side is this beautiful like historical bar with like this like carved wood. It looks like it's from the 20s. It's very just stunning, beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And with like these like stained glass stuff everywhere. So I'm like
Mhm.
over there like trying to like stay away from people because I don't want to get COVID. And also there's wine. And I like white wine, if anybody doesn't know that. So I'm sitting over there, and then slowly just like this giant congregation who I think were probably too loud, but it's fine. I
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
wearing my Golden Lasso Games shirt, and I was masked at the time, so maybe they won't know it was me.
No one's gonna know.
No one's gonna know, except if they listen to this podcast. So I guess we don't have to worry about it. So it's fine.
Well. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure
Nobody
we're
running the Ennies listens to this podcast.
Ah. And then someone from MythWorks Publishing is like, hey, oh, oops.
Yeah.
Or Brian comes up like, hey, also, all of our friends show up. Whoops.
Whoops. Yeah. Yeah. Ray was very fun. That was awesome. He was there
Oh
too.
yeah. Mhm.
Oh, good times. Good times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was like the big highlight. And like, I also did the drunken thing where like once all the game designers were drunk and the Ennies were over, like I did like the field trip walk, like, okay, we're going to a secondary location. Everybody
Yeah.
pick a buddy. Like I used to have to do this at Strategicon with the Happy Jacks crew. It's like, okay, everyone, we're walking. We're walking. We're gonna
Mhm.
stop here and wait. We're not gonna cross the street yet. It was very funny.
Yeah, I was dying in the middle of it. I was like, I have to go back to my hotel because I can't see straight. Not because I was drunk, but because I was that
So
tired.
tired, yeah. I was trying
I was
really hard to stay
exhausted.
resting, so I was, and also like I was lucky, so I didn't have anything too early in the morning, any of the mornings.
Mhm.
At least, I mean, I have a toddler, so my idea of early in the morning I think is different than most people. I was like, I got to sleep till like 9 o'clock. It was super late. It was amazing. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Yeah, that's was kind of the running joke with Mitch because I was in a hotel room with Mitch Bustillos
Yeah.
and he was always up at 7:30 and I was like, it's because you have a child. Your child is like has trained you to get up early.
Yeah.
Because I was like dead. I was like, I don't understand how you get up at 7:30 in the morning after being out like for so
Yeah. Just like you
long.
get programmed. So it's like
Mhm.
I wake up at 7 o'clock every day, no matter what. Sometimes I can go back to sleep. But yeah, so it's so fun. Um, yeah, I don't know what's one of your highlights? What's another one of your highlights?
I think the big highlight for me was definitely the live play that we did of the Wild Sea.
Yeah.
Myself and the people at the Pocket Dragon Pub, the actual play channel that I'm on, put a lot of time and heart and effort into it.
Hmm.
And I was very proud of myself because that particular game is very difficult to do a one shot of. It's really
Yeah.
not like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just
No.
meant for long form play.
Yeah.
That's the way it's designed. You want to come back and keep playing, and for a reason, it's a great world. I love
Yeah.
it. But the additional challenge to that is I only had a 3 hour time slot, so I had to tell this story in 3 hours, and I was glad we did a prologue game before we got on the stage
Hmm.
because I was like, oh, this is 5. I have to adjust my sheet.
Hmm.
I did it in exactly 2 hours and 59 minutes. So I was
Nice.
very pleased with myself.
Good
Um,
job.
but yeah, and I mean, the entire cast was into it. We all got in. We all went in, like, we dove into our cosplay. We got a great shot of everybody, and I mean, people were like Mothrin. There was someone who was I forgot what they're called, but they're the sentient. They're kind of like Warforged, but they're made from pieces of ships.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes. And so someone cosplayed one of those. It was just a very cool experience. And it was very sweet. At the end of it, Ray and Felix came up and gave everybody roses. So we all had
I
roses.
was so excited about that. Like we were trying to
Yes.
figure out how to do that the night before because that's when he was hanging out with us the night before. That's when the Indies.
Mhm.
So he was like, okay, like I have to get flowers. Like we were trying to figure out how to get the flowers and get them to the convention center like easily without them dying. It was very fun to like
Oh
kind
yeah.
of be trying to drunkenly troubleshoot that problem. But I'm glad they
Oh.
got them to you. That's very exciting.
Yes, it was so sweet. Oh my God. It was so sweet. We loved it. And I will say this, you're telling a good story when the only thing people get up to go do is go to the bathroom and they come right back. I think we
Yeah,
only had one person like straight up leave. Everybody else who came stayed for the full 3 hours.
that's amazing.
And something that meant a lot to me is when people like walk up to me at the end of like an event that I do and they're like, hey, this is really meaningful to me for this reason. And
Mhm.
someone actually did that and thanked us for telling such a great story
Aw.
within the Wild Sea. So I was like, thank you for that. And it like, I mean, Felix and Ray obviously were excited, but like this was a person who actually just watched the show who
Mhm.
was just very impressed and got into the Wild Sea because of it, which is the point.
Yeah.
It's a great game and I'm happy that I had the opportunity to promote it. So
That's awesome. That's very cool. I didn't do like I did a couple like pickup games. I didn't run any games. I thought that originally the plan was for the Kickstarter to be over before Gen Con, so I figured I would just
Mhm.
like hang out and like chill. That didn't happen, so I ended up handing out flyers all the time, which I got yelled at for a couple times, but whatever.
Yeah, because you're technically not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but like every time I just like looked like, oh, I'm not supposed to. And then they're like, yeah, next time we'll pull your badge. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then like walk for a little while and then start doing it again. Um,
Yep.
but I mostly did panels, which was really interesting because I haven't, being there the first time, you never know how panels are going to go at a new con because
Mhm.
each con has its own vibe. So I was lucky enough to do, uh, Magpie had a couple panels that I did for them. They weren't PBTA specific, but they were very PBTA themed. So one was on like the player agendas and how to be a good player.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that one was great. One was on like just kind of how to like organize games and keep them kind of in theme. I was really honored to be chosen. Steve Jackson Games. Their current CEO, Meredith, is
Mhm.
amazing. Don't think they know the history of our podcast and Steve Jackson and the interview we did with
Oh
him
my.
years ago where he was like, that's a stupid question. We're like, yep, okay, yes, it's a stupid question. Sorry. Long story, go back. It wasn't like bad, but Stork, we were doing an interview with him and it was early in our podcast days and Stork like was like, where do you get your ideas from? And Steve Jackson like is very upfront about things. He's like, that's a stupid question. We're like, okay, yes, okay,
It's like,
moving on.
sorry.
Yeah.
Uh,
But they organized a game or not a game, a panel for women and non-binary leaders in tabletop, which is great.
Yay.
Which I was very excited to be picked for that. They were looking for someone who is a smaller company because
Mhm.
they had like obviously Meredith, who's CEO of Steve Jackson Game, which is a bigger name, and they
Yeah.
had like people who are professional writers and stuff. So they wanted someone more on the indie side of things. So I got asked to kind of
Yay.
represent that. So that was a fantastic experience. And it was really great talking about those experiences to a room of people who are looking for ways to handle it is always very rewarding. And it's always,
Mhm.
I think it's important for panels like that not just to be about describing what it is, but also ways to overcome it and how you handle it. So
Oh,
I always feel honored to be someone that people think can give advice to help people. So
mhm.
that was really great. And I got to connect with a bunch of really great people on the
Yay.
panel. And then also like people coming up afterwards asking about things. A lot of people interested in starting their own publishing companies or designing themselves and stuff like that. So that was,
Yeah.
I think that was another highlight other than like drunk indie design hangout. Then it's like,
I was gonna
two
say,
sides.
you were talking about Starscape, and I remembered I did a no D20 panel. It's what it's called. It was a panel about games that don't use D20s, just
Mhm.
kind of introducing this idea to people who maybe don't know about games outside of the typical fare, shall we call it?
Yeah.
And Starscape was on my list,
Oh, thank
actually.
you.
So yeah, Starscape was on my list as a PBTA game that people 100% should try. 10/10 recommend the whole nine. I'm also obsessed with that game, so it
I
could be
appreciate that.
anything.
Thank you.
But yeah, the other thing that I thought was really that I did was a game design panel.
Oh, yeah.
Um, because again, like, and I think you've noticed, like in the space, we have a lot of people who want to design games and who want to, get started in the hobby and the space as a designer. And I was like, well, what if we just kind of did like an intro to and gave people like a starting point? Like, here's a place to get started. So you're not like fully lost when you
Mhm.
embark on this journey of
Mm.
designing your own game. And I uh, actually was able to sit down with Sydney Icarus, who did Decaying Orbit,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
wrote and created Decaying Orbit, Mitch Pistios, who wrote and created Necrobiotic, Ray from MythWorks Publishing, and Felix Isaacs. And we got to sit down and have like a little conversation. And I think it was super helpful. Like watching people take notes during the panel was amazing.
Yeah.
So it was nice to be able to, and I was like, it's kind of a weird place to be where you're like, I know these people.
Mhm.
It's really cool that I get to like talk about my friends' games. I get to be on panels with my friends. Like, this is so neat. You know, it's a surreal kind of experience, I think.
It is. Yeah, that's like it's funny because I had already said yes to like another thing when you asked me to do that, and I was like,
Yes.
that's my buddy panel. Like, all my friends are on that panel. But I
Yeah.
felt bad like canceling the other one because I'd already said yes like way before. I was like, I want to be on my
Yeah.
friend's panel.
I was like, I should have asked sooner.
It's
No,
okay.
I was so upset. I was like, because I really wanted you in there just to be that, just so that it wasn't a full sausage party. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, it is
So,
still the game design space, which is it heavily leans a certain direction for a lot of things. It's funny. I was on a game design panel too, but instead of talking about game design, we actually,
mhm.
me and two other designers, actually designed a game in an hour. So
Oh
using the
wow.
audience, like we like were like, okay, are we gonna design sci-fi or fantasy or horror? And like we had them like vote, and like we made the decisions, and we actually came up with a really cool game. So now we're like, okay, so we're gonna have to do this panel again next year, but also, should we make this game? Like, so it's very
This is just
interesting.
how you make games for now. You
I
just
know,
go to
just like, yeah, just like crowdsource it. Okay, I need good ideas. People send me good ideas. But yeah, we might actually end up. It was very interesting. It ended up being a game where you're on a generation ship, but you are the
Mhm.
AI. You plays the AI running the ship and trying to keep the humans alive. Yeah,
Nice.
and each one of you is like the custodian of a different part of the ship. Like, you're each responsible for a different part, and you have to work together with like
Mhm.
a shared dice pool that you can pull from to try and keep the humans alive.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was very cool. And then like the generations pass, like every time the dice pool empties, you jump to the
Hmm.
next generation and the children of the people that you were keeping alive in the last one.
It
Isn't it
makes me
such a
think of
cool
like
idea?
Hall of Magic and City of Winter, but like with dice.
Yeah,
Which kind of makes
basically,
sense.
it's wild. So it's a very cool idea, and they were like, "Well, we should have like trust in it." I'm like, "Okay, no, this is not I did not say that out loud. This is not Starscape." Like a lot of them kept coming up with ideas, and I was just like, "I just want the record to show I did not suggest this thing. That is a very good idea, and should be in games, but you know." So
Right.
yeah, there was
This is not me.
yeah, this is not me. The audience came up with ideas, and I was just like, I'd just like to tell you how great an idea of having trust in a science fiction game is. I think that's genius, random audience member. Good job. And honestly, like they didn't know. I thought at first it was like a joke or a plant or something, and it wasn't. They were just like, I was like, you and I should be friends.
Yes.
Okay.
Adventure like the adventures at Gen Con, it's I think the one thing that I will say is that it's incredibly memorable because you get to see and do so many things and
Hmm.
like you get really what makes it memorable is the people that you get to hang out with and talk to and the things that you did in panels. um but conversely to that, that's how everybody ends up getting COVID because you're all trying to network. It's
Yeah.
like, and you're all within 6 feet of each other. And like, don't breathe my air.
Yeah.
Okay, just don't.
It was hard. Like I was very careful. I was able to do a lot more. I was worried that I'd go and not be able to do any networking because that was my whole point of going. But I was like sharing an Airbnb with a trusted friend, and I didn't want to like pull out at the last minute and like leave her stranded and all that stuff. So I still went.
Mhm.
I had a lot of luck with the first day, like the first part of the day, I walked around the different blocks around the convention center and like made notes of which restaurants had outdoor seating, which
Oh
really
yeah.
helped. There's also like this big beautiful park area between two of the hotels right next to the convention
Oh
center.
yes. Mhm,
So it
mhm.
was like one of those things where I kept saying like, "Hey, let's go pick up food and go hang out at the park and just like get away for a little while." So a lot of my networking ended up being at these restaurants and with outdoor seating, which even though the weather was terrible, for the most part, people were really like good about that. And then like the park was like my other secret like suggestion. Like, hey, there's this beautiful park where like these benches under this wisteria like awning.
Mhm.
Let's go grab some like Shake Shack and then like go hang out over there and just like get away for a little while. And even people who weren't being COVID cautious like thought that sounded like such a nice break because it was literally right there.
Yeah.
So like coming up with little creative ways to like get them into a more safe situation without like I mean you shouldn't have to do that, but it's a good way to do that. Kind of takes the pressure off them and takes the pressure off you, and makes
Yeah.
it just safer in general without also being like seeming like you're doom and gloom all the time. Because I know that's as someone who still doesn't eat indoors, even
Mm.
in LA, like it's it's hard to be the person always like being like
Aware
the
of it.
strict one. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I can't say I did the same because we found this one pancake house. I can't even remember the name
Uh
of it.
huh.
I thought it was such a good pancake house, but it was crowded.
Hmm.
Everybody discovered it at the same time,
Oh,
and I'm positive they made money hand over fist. There were so many people there.
I bet.
They had these cinnamon popper
Oh my
things
gosh.
that were literal crack. Like they were so good. um, and I think the only other place that was like not I think there was a steak and shake that we got because we were all poor by that time. Where it's like I have enough money for steak and shake. But there was another place we went to called the Punch Bowl. That
Oh.
was pretty interesting.
Hmm.
And then everybody went in that room and sang karaoke in a little room. And
Oh.
I was like, that's not, this is what, and maybe no, maybe I don't do that. Maybe I don't sing in a room full of people. Or if I do, I'm just gonna keep my mask on the whole time and
Yeah.
hope to God.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
But it was definitely an adventure in Indianapolis. I will say next year I hope if I do this again, big if, I would love to get a hotel that's closer because my hotel, that was the one thing that I didn't like, is my hotel was great, but far away from the
Yeah.
convention proper.
We were so lucky. My friend Emily is just magic. Like I don't know. I feel like she must be a wizard.
Oh God.
Like because we got like it was like a few months ago. It wasn't even that long ago. She
Mhm.
got an Airbnb literally like 2 blocks from the convention center for super cheap.
Wow.
Yeah, she was magical, and she has like a method, she says, and I don't know what that is, and I don't think she's ever gonna tell me, but I'm really glad that she's my friend because we got this
Yeah.
beautiful Airbnb that had like 2 bedrooms and like a kitchen and like a big living room, and we would like invite people over just like slightly because it was like inviting 2 people into this large Airbnb with high ceilings and all this air conditioning is so much safer than like being in the bar or whatever it is.
Yes.
But yeah, it was just like we showed up and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But it was like so nice to just be able to walk back and forth constantly. It was really nice.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing is like, and the reason that I didn't get to do as much networking is probably because of the back and forth between the hotel.
Hmm.
And I will say, if I didn't have a friend that was staying at the embassy suites, our tech for actual play would have been a disaster.
No.
We ended up storing a lot of our technical equipment there just because it was going to be an easier walk to the convention
Mm,
center from the embassy.
yeah.
Because the embassy is like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because
just don't fall down the stairs.
yeah. um It's still it's been the first big convention I've gone to since COVID started. Like I've done
Mhm.
like single days at San Diego Comic-Con, but
Right.
like go down there, walk straight to the thing where I'm doing my panel, and then like walk out. Like no, I didn't do like hotel stays or like restaurants or any of that stuff.
Hmm.
So it was interesting, kind of just like getting back into the groove of it, and um, I don't know. I guess it's like riding a bicycle. Like you still definitely know how to like go with the flow and all these things. And I don't know. I have to see what Emily's doing next year. But like I'm not super stressed out about the hotel lottery for next year if I
No.
end up going again next year because like San Diego Comic Con's had a lottery for so many years. And
Right.
somehow, I mean, maybe I've now jinxed myself, but like somehow I've always gotten a hotel for Comic Con. So if I can get a hotel in a city that has 200,000 people going to the convention, I feel like 80,000 or whatever Gen Con is. I'm like, I feel like I don't know. Hopefully they're
Oh yeah.
building more hotels. Hopefully that's what all that construction was. Is like more hotels.
Yeah, more hotels, more spaces to stay that's closer to the
Yeah.
convention. We'll see. I think a lot of my friend and I are just like, maybe we should just book the Westin in advance. I don't know anymore because the
Yeah.
Westin's the convention hotel. So
Oh, okay. Yeah,
mhm.
100%. Like we're gonna like reach out to the Airbnb owner and be like, hey, can we just like book this every year for this time?
Like, can
See.
we just can we work out an agreement?
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
Oh, classic D&D.
Yeah.
You know. Uh,
All right. I feel like that's a very good Gen Con conversation. We could keep talking
yes.
about it forever. But I feel like we need to get to the emails. What do you think?
Oh yeah, there people wrote into the show,
That's right.
right?
This is what we do. We don't just talk about
Right.
ourselves. No, we do. That's exactly what we do.
Oh gosh.
All right. Would you like to read mailbag number 1?
Yes, I'm actually pulling it up right now, so I'm not like caught with
Okay.
my pants down here.
This is so
All
fun.
right, so mailbag number one comes to us from Alvarant.
Mhm.
I hope I'm saying that right. And it says, "Hi Jackers, it's been a while since my last email. To refresh everyone's memory, I wrote to Stu about my character who was mind controlled for multiple sessions, and the GM was upset when I asked that it end. I wrote again when I left the group, when the GM decided that my playing a woman gave him justification to harass her and not give her any subplots."
Ooh.
I'm going to take a moment to blink here because this is already okay. Okay.
It was a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a part of that group for about 15 years through multiple jobs and homes. That group was part of the reason why I picked the townhome that I'm in, since it was between the homes of most of the other players. Two of them moved out of state. Now the question is, why did I stay with them so long? It's because I tried to make a found family out of them, and that kept me from seeing how toxic they were. I'm single, have few friends, and family is hours away at best. So I was desperate for a found family, even if it was bad for me. That leads me to my question. How should one see your gaming group? Should they be casual acquaintances, close friends, or something in between? How does one know, and what happens if the degree of familiarity you want is different from everyone else? What happened with that group adversely affected how I feel about joining another gaming group, and I want to help others before the same things happen to them. Okay, so I am weirdly qualified to speak on this because I actually went through the same thing. um, I didn't make as many life adjustments. I didn't like move to these people or anything. But yeah, when I first started, this is my very first D&D experience, believe it or not. Um, sorry, this whole thing sounds like something out of Crispy's Tavern or like Crit Crab, like this horror thing. Like, I'm so sorry that happened to you and that that was your gaming experience. But I am here to tell you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Um, again, because I went through something similar. So when I first started to play D&D, I had a friend. I was looking for a table desperately. I was like, it was during in the middle of the worst of like the COVID. We were all shut down. Nobody had anything to do, and we were all losing our minds inside our houses, trying to figure out what to do. Like, what is my life? Now that it is not defined by the things I normally do outside of the house. Um, and I had a friend who's like, "Oh, I'm gonna run a D&D game. Let's do it remote." Blah blah blah. It was him, his wife at the time, and a couple of other friends. And to make a long story short, that table turned toxic very quickly, and it sort of imploded on itself.
Oof.
But in that same way that you try to turn them into a found family, that's what I did. And I think the important thing to note is that number one, that's not everybody in the gaming space. Number two, uh, it's important. I think that your gaming group should, I guess the best way to put it is that it can become a found family, but it doesn't necessarily have to fill that space. And that's the best way that I could think of to do it. Because as much as like we want it to be that, sometimes it's not that way. Sometimes it's just a bunch of people getting around a table to play some games, and that's okay. That I think I would encourage you to find other spaces as well of more people with common interests, because only by meeting more people can we find people that we jive with. And at least in what my experience taught me is who I want to play with at the table. Like, these are the kinds of personalities that I want to play with at the table. And it taught me what to look for when I'm getting ready to play at the table. There are certain things that I won't tolerate. Like, I was like, oh, I now have very, very, very clear lines and veils.
Yeah.
Here's what I won't do.
Yeah.
you know? And if people have a problem with that, you don't have to play with them.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like this has changed depending on where I'm at in my life.
mhm.
And I also feel like I don't think there's a right or a wrong about how close you are to your gaming group. I think the most important thing is that everybody's on the same page with it, which you already
Yes.
sort of mentioned in the email, and that everyone's treating everyone else well. And those are the two clearest things. Like, it is fine. Like, I've had groups where I played with them like regularly at cons or whatever, that like, hey, how are you? And you kind of like know their first name, and then like, and like I have people who, come back to my games time after time and things like that, and you're like, okay, like they're good acquaintances. Um, but then you have, like, I have people who like Stu and Stork and all of them. When I first started gaming with them, like, we were already good friends, and eventually we became good enough friends that like I'm the godmother to Stu's kids, and like things like that. Like, you got very, very close, and part of that was like gaming, but it was also like just we hung out all the time. So I feel like there's like this gradient of things, and as long as everyone's on the same page about it, I think that's healthy. If
Yeah.
you are feeling everyone else is a found family and you feel the need and this is what I have to watch out for, because I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I have kind of a maternal instinct. I like taking care of people and herding cats and like creating community. And found family is like my thing because my childhood, being a little
Mhm.
difficult, like that's what I seek as an adult.
Yep.
And I have to be aware of that with myself. So I create spaces where people feel like they belong, and I try and bring people together because that's how I fill the gaps in myself. And that makes me
Right.
feel whole. I have to be careful because I often, one, overstretch myself, which is a running joke with everyone who knows me, but also I get, uh, I feel like very close with people before it's necessarily like actually there. And part of that is like my being neurospicy, but part of that is
Mhm.
also like my I want to create found family. And sometimes it's hard. Like sometimes I'll sit at the table with like Jason and Joey and Adam and a new person, and we're playing a game, and this new person's like, oh wow, like you all know each other really, really well. I think oh God, Artem did that last time. We were
Yeah.
doing a Starscape, just
Oh.
a play test, and it was
Mhm.
me and Joey and Jason and Artem. And like
Yeah.
Artem sat down, and it was like I feel like Artem's a really good friend, and then
Oh yeah.
like, but then Artem sits down with Joey and Jason and I, who've known each other for 10 plus years. Like I introduced Joey and his husband. Like it's just like these, like we have all this backstory between us, and it doesn't become clear until you sit down with this new person, and we say stuff, and it's like we almost read each other's minds. And Artem's like,
Mhm.
oh, you all know each other really well, huh? And I'm like, oh yeah, we do. Oh, you don't get our joke. I forgot because I feel like Artem knows us because he's like in the group, and they're in the group. And
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just so I have to be very cognizant of that because it's very easy for me to like adopt people and bring them into the found family without it necessarily
Mhm.
being appropriate. I don't know. I've got bad judgment on that particular piece.
It's one of those where I really do think it comes from being neurospicy, because I think part of being neurospicy is we feel like we feel like we want to love everyone, and everyone's just deserving of love, because a lot of times, because we're neurospicy or because of various other things, we maybe didn't get that growing up. And not to go super deep into that, but I like, because my stuff comes from the same place. I tend to trust people, like right out of the gate. I don't like I'm also very I've learned over the years to be more cautious and not to trust people immediately, but I'm very much like that. Like I want to be friends with people, I want to love people, I want to help people. It's just part of who I am, and that has put me in a lot of toxic situations
Yeah.
inadvertently, because I didn't see the warning signs, because I kept saying, oh, they're still a good person, they're still a good person. And sometimes you have to learn that some people are loved better from a distance than up close.
Yeah.
um but and then you have tables that don't know each other at all, conversely, because you made me think of the first time I did Savage Worlds with Engie, Jay, Jason, and Darby,
Mhm.
and all of us sat down at the table together, and you couldn't it was like we'd known each other for 10 years. Like that whole table was magic. And then, you conversely, the game that came after that with Engie, Darby, Artem, and Brian, same thing. Like after a few games, we were all acting like we'd known each other forever.
Mhm.
And it just, stuff was clicking. Like we figured out where people were going, we kind of got it. You can have tables like that exist.
Yeah.
And conversely, you can also have those tables and not like still be friends, or even still be acquaintances. You can have those moments. You just all, like you said, Kimmy, everybody has to be on the same page,
Yeah.
you know?
And I've had, and you can't and you can be at a table with just acquaintances and still tell incredible stories. There have
Mm-hmm.
been times where some of the most impactful and exciting and like risk-taking moments I've ever done have been at convention tables with strangers. And sometimes there's some freedom in that. Like you don't have to worry about like Jason giving me shit later for doing something silly. Sorry to call you out, Jason, but like things like that. It's like there's some freedom in having a little bit of a less, close connection too. So
Mhm.
I feel like it's important to try both things out. And I've had more luck with making friends and then introducing them to games than I've had from doing games and having that be the introduction to friendships.
Right.
So I think that that's really important. Like if you invite people to a game, don't don't already have plans to make it more than that. Like just have them do it. If you want to make friends, go do other stuff or go to a convention or whatever you want to do that other gamers might be at, make friends with them and then invite them to a game. I think that's a
Or
safer way.
I was gonna say, or if you have a local gaming group like Story Games LA, shout out to Story
Yes.
Games LA. You go there and you play a bunch of games, and eventually you'll get to know people and their play styles, and you can start making friends that way. It's kind of like go practice your hobby with other people that practice your hobby, and maybe you'll find friends in that hobby.
Yeah.
Um, like, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just kind of how it worked for me. Because when I had actually found Story Games, and that was how I started making more friends and getting to know more people,
Mhm.
just by sitting down and playing a bunch of games with them and being like, wow, this person's really cool, I like their play style. And then we just kept talking and we became friends,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah. So it's definitely something I think that walk carefully. You want to walk carefully. You want to be aware of stuff like what Kimmy and I talked about how we want to like help people, and we have these things that we do that we know we're aware of, and we know to watch out for. Knowing yourself, knowing what your lines and veils are, and also something that I found at most tables that's a really good way of figuring out whether or not you want to stay at the table is constantly checking in. Especially if you're doing something that like could be that might fall into the realm of sensitive content, like if you're role playing romance, or if you're if there's a sensitive situation going on, checking in and being like, hey, is it okay, like great example, my character in Savage Worlds, Celine, got super mad at our Thames character over a lie that was told. And after that scene happened, I actually checked in with our Tem like above table and was like, hey, are you okay? My character was super mad and said a bunch of heated stuff to you. I just want to make sure that your feelings weren't hurt, like as a player, as a person. Stuff like that. If that person's willing to check in with you, that says a lot about them. The fact that you're willing to check in with them also says a lot about you. And stuff like that are kind of, I call the green flags. Look for the green flags, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to articulate. So
Yeah. Yeah. So as someone, and I'm going to give dating advice that is also applicable to gaming. So being neurospicy, like I was very prone to falling for people who needed someone to take care of them or did love bombing. Neither of which were healthy, but like made me feel like it got through my neurospicy like shield and like, oh, you're interested in me. That's amazing. I don't think anyone else is interested in me. 20-something Kimmy. Come on. All right. Anyway. So when I finally was like, okay, I recognize my patterns. I need to break these patterns. I was doing online dating back when it was still a weird thing. Like it was like 14 years ago. So I made a list for myself of like, okay, the people I date have to have these things. And it wasn't like a super complicated list. It was like own their own car in their own name. Because that's the choices I was making at the time. So, it was like it was like, I think there was like 5 things on the list, and those were like the deal breakers. So if you are finding that you're having trouble like delineating between who is going to be a good friend and who isn't going to be a good friend, or who you want to maybe have as a good friend, make a list of things. Don't make a huge giant list, but like these are the deal breakers, like, and make them like core things about yourself, like, obviously like not a racist asshole, like things like that, like, whatever they are, like think about yourself, what you want in a friend, and like make those things, and then hold yourself to that list. That was very, very helpful for me. I married the person I ended up meeting after making that list, so there you go. Yeah, it worked out, but just because it was so, I knew how vulnerable I was to falling for like that emotional need and wanting to like, hey, I want this to work. I want us to be together. I am so like blown away by your love bombing. You must really care about me. I'm sure this will be different than last time. Having that list just helped ground me, and my emotions in like logic and thought. So that might be helpful if you're looking for people who are in a gaming group that you want to become actual friends with, or to like start building that found family. Like these are the things I want for people in my family, because that's the cool thing about a found family, is you get to pick them. So if they don't match what you want, you cannot have them in your found family.
Exactly. They don't have to be a part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I will say one more thing, and that is that take it slow.
Yeah.
You've obviously, I mean, this email pretty much says to me that you've obviously been grievously hurt in the past by other gaming groups, and not wanting to get close to people is normal and natural when you've experienced an extreme hurt like that. That's okay. But yeah, take it slow, take it easy, go just start meeting people, have conversations with them, and there's bound to be someone that you click with, and pursue those conversations. Same dating advice that would apply here. Pursue those conversations, see where they take you, and you might get some friends out of it that, lo and behold, your found family will kind of build itself in that way. But give yourself the time and the patience to heal from that, and to open up to new relationships as well.
Absolutely.
So
All right, mailbag number 2. Dear Headmistress Kimmy and the class of Jacobouts. Woo. Sometimes, yeah, not headmistress, kindergarten teacher Kimmy, starting like tomorrow. I'm so nervous. It's so exciting.
You're gonna
All
do
right.
great.
I know. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I have so many little shelves and centers. It's going to be amazing. Okay.
Aw.
All right. Sometimes one just gotta love the job you have. Currently, I am interviewing teachers about their experiences and insight and how to use TTRPGs in the classroom to enhance students' learning. Definitely fun and rewarding project. It all started when I found that Wizards of the Coast has a site with educator resources. Just searching for D&D in the classroom, and it pops right up. Including activity books, build an adventure kit, and much more. So at least they see the potential. But my question is, does it work? Are there other and better ways? And somewhat important for my work, how can I work with the Danish school system? Okay. The Danish
Okay.
school system is really good. So, I mean, there are a lot of after-school activities with TTRPGs. I run one myself, but they're more about creating activities for kids to meet new friends, develop interpersonal skills, and promoting the hobby. More close to the mark is 2 schools in Denmark specializing in teaching 9 to 10th graders in what can best be described as a week-long live-action role-playing games. So, in a kind of related way, they have made role-playing part of their classrooms. But that isn't quite the same as TTRPGs. Or maybe it is not so far away. I will learn more when I visit one of the schools later in the fall. Why am I doing it, you might ask? Well, there's a lot of research to show how TTRPGs can be used to elevate students' social and personal skills, but not so much about how games such as Dungeons and Dragons can be used to teach curriculum and other essential components of school subjects. And while working in the National Agency of Education, we always look for new ways to engage both teachers and students. So I am doing interviews to learn more. But while interviewing these teachers is great, I would also love to get some insights from my favorite advice show. I mean, Kimmy and some of the other hosts are teachers, and all know something with both TTRPGs and going to school. My question is, do you have any experience with using TTRPGs to enhance learning in a classroom or another setting? If yes, what worked and what could have been better? If no, what advice insight do you have regarding the use of TTRPGs to enhance learning? Such as, what would you expect could be beneficial when using TTRPGs in the classroom? What pitfalls do you see? Any advice on how to make the experience great for both students and teachers? Other do's and don'ts. Thanks for reading my letter, Thomas from Denmark. All right. Yes, I've done TTRPGs in the classroom. And Vixie, feel free to chime in or ask questions or whatever.
Well, I mean, I have 2 contributions. The first of which, my first GM was a math teacher, and I hated math. And so he taught me how to do addition for Dungeons and Dragons, all the math for Dungeons and Dragons. So I will say that. The second thing that I will say is you should go to Gen Con because of a lot of their panels were focused on that very subject, education, TTRPGs and education. So, but
Yeah.
that's my contribution to this. I'll chime in if I think I have something that's relevant, though.
Well, yeah, and if you have questions, so I've done TTRPGs in my classroom a couple times. The first one was interesting. There was a parent at the school I was teaching at who was designing like a curriculum for the classroom that was supposed to be inspired by tabletop RPGs. And he knew that I was a tabletop gamer. So he asked if he could like pilot it in my classroom. And I was very hesitant. And then my principal said I had to. So I said yes. And it was, I forget, it ended up actually being published at some point. But it was really annoying because he came in with this idea of what it would be. And it was completely non-functional in a classroom. Like it had no value. It was an interesting like LARP activity, but there was no actual work or learning involved in it. So like after the first day of it, I was like, I can't spend any more time on this. I don't have enough days in the school year. I can't do this unless we change it up. So I sat with him and we basically redesigned the whole thing. It was a sci-fi thing. So we ended up, it was sort of like much later I found out that what Artemis was that they run at Strategicon, which is sort of a replica of basically being on Star Trek where you're like different parts of the ship and things like that. We ended up kind of replicating that with like small groups. Like students were split into different things and they'd rotate between the different sections of the ship. And whatever we were working on that day, they would earn points. And then, we basically turned it into like a centers model that then would play into the role play aspect of being on the ship after they got their certain numbers of points or whatever. Um, it ended up working pretty well. And then he promptly left and I never heard back from him. A number of years later, I guess he published it or something. And like a bunch of people, like he got kind of famous for it, which I feel a little burned on, but I'm like, okay, cool. Peace out. So I have no idea how close whatever he published was to what I had to come up with, because I pretty much designed the whole thing for him because he was very unfamiliar with how classrooms run, which most people are, so I didn't fault him for that. But I have no idea if I was ever mentioned in that book. It'd be interesting.
Oh
Um,
boy.
yeah, but so that was interesting. It was very motivational for those kids. Um, I can't speak to the Danish school system, but in the United States, we have very prescribed like standards we have to hit, and often we have prescribed curriculum. I actually very drunkenly at the Ennies talked to the person who owns Kobold Press about this specifically, because he sort of just like randomly came up to me. Brian was talking to me. I wasn't very drunk, honestly. I was a little drunk. But he started talking to me about like the market for games in schools. And I was like, the first game company who finds a way to design a game that can be laid on top of any standards will become a millionaire, like a bazillionaire, because schools are looking for things to get kids motivated and still hit those prescribed standards. And that's the big thing that D&D can't do. D&D can maybe have you hit writing standards or something like that, but like, okay, if I'm teaching fractions, there's not a lot that Dungeons and Dragons can do with that. But if you can build in some sort of model where by completing your math work or by, you earn points that you can then build your character and then, use your, like, there's a lot of, like workout apps and stuff like that are, what's it called? There's a to-do list. That's an RPG one app that I used to use all the time, but you like earn points by doing stuff on your to-do list and then you can like put that into your character and like buy new outfits and stuff like that. It's super cool.
Okay.
So like if you can find some way to merge the prescribed curriculum, like I'm not allowed to, like I have to use the curriculum that my district has bought. So if there's some sort of TTRPG product that I can put on top of that, so they are still doing the curriculum that the district paid so much money for, millions and millions of dollars for, then that is how it would really, really work. I did design, at some point I'll probably do that, but I did when I was teaching 7th grade. Part of that in California anyway is the feudal Japan. So I designed, it wasn't really an RPG, but it was like Risk basically, where they were split into the different historical groups, feudal fiefdoms of feudal Japan. And then they got points each day based on completing their work. And then they got to spend those points on food, armies, or there's something else. Basically, it was Risk. Basically, it was Risk. And so they got to like spend those points on that. And then they got to actually go to war with each other. So then they would like roll dice at the end of the day and like they got a certain number of dice based on how many armies they had. But every day they had to feed the armies. So armies would die if they didn't feed them. So like it was like the whole 9 years. I got really into designing it. Feel like that was like my first actual game design and I didn't even think about it at the time. So slowly but surely, like some groups got bigger because they'd take over other groups. And and then they would have more, like they would have an advantage because they were able to get more work done. So they'd get more points and stuff. So it was very interesting. And it really taught them the way that like it worked in feudal Japan and the benefits of having a large thing. But also if you had a bunch too many armies, then you had to feed the armies. So it was very, I don't know. I was very proud of it. It was really cool. It really taught the idea of feudalism in addition to just the historical facts of it. And it brought all the curriculum from the day into this cool kind of like larger thing that they were very excited about doing and like I had like the highest attendance rate in school for that whole unit because like nobody wanted to be sick, nobody wanted to miss any days, because they wanted to see if their armies were able to take over or defend or all these things. Um,
Yeah.
so I feel like
Um,
there's a lot of potential there, and I just haven't seen any company really go for it yet, really.
it's interesting that you say that 'cause that's what I was thinking is like history is probably the easiest place to design something like that. And that's because a couple of things. Number one, a lot of board games are
Yeah.
actually based on history. I recently played a game called Barcelona that was literally about
Yeah.
building up Barcelona in like the period of the Industrial Revolution. So stuff like that exists. And then I also early like alpha tested a game about the last wife of Henry Tudor,
Mhm.
where you were all playing court ladies in service to her and dealing with the fact that she was about to, not the last one, the second to last one, but dealing with the fact that she was about to be beheaded and stuff like that. It
Catherine
was
Howard.
Catherine Howard. It was another Catherine. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that much.
3 Catherines,
But
2 Annes, and a Jane.
yes. So it was the second, it was that Catherine. And you had to like decide whether or not you wanted to defend her or escape. And it was a very interesting thing because it sent us throughout medieval England. We had to figure out who the allies were because, the frenemies that were Spain and France and where we wanted to run to, if we were going to escape, if we were going to stick it out with the queen and die with her. Like it presented a lot of interesting things and a lot of historical context as well. But stuff like that
Mhm.
can be really useful when educating about history specifically.
Yeah.
I think other subjects like math and stuff might be a little harder. I do remember, and I mean, this was way back in the day, that some of our math teachers would actually teach you for probability would teach you things like would say, okay, we're going to play craps and we're going to play blackjack because those
Yeah.
are both probability based games. Obviously no betting involved because we were children, but the idea was to teach us the concept of probability.
Yeah.
So stuff like anything that can teach you a basic concept
Mhm.
within the curriculum, I can talk English today, is probably for the best.
Yeah.
And I know one of the neat things that most game designers can do that always floors me is that how quickly they can calculate the probability of how many times you'll succeed
Mhm.
on a dice roll. What was it? Just listening to Jason list off like, oh well, the probability you'll exceed is X and X%, and I'm just like, huh?
Yeah.
Numbers? What?
No.
So
I have to search. Like there's a bunch of dice websites that give me the probability, or I just text
oh,
Jason. I'm like, hey Jason, what do you think of this? And then he tells me.
Ben just tells you.
Yeah, just like, well, let me tell you. I get like the like barrage of texts back, or he just calls me. That's like I feel like that's the only time we talk on the phone because we're very much text people. Like
Yes, just to exchange percentages.
yeah,
Yeah, that kind of thing might be, you know, that'll teach you a couple concepts for sure.
yeah.
But stuff like that's where that would be my relevant point in this conversation.
No, yeah, and that's absolutely true. Like it's really easy to do versions of different games that don't have a bunch of magic and stuff like that you could very easily, have it explore. I wrote an article years ago about how like the Assassin's Creed games, like if you took like the murder part out of it and some of the other adult content, just having
No.
yeah, I honestly like I ended up writing an email to the company like I know you won't do this, but if you released a version of this game that didn't have the murder and stuff and just let kids run around like historical Boston or all these different places, I'm like this would be such an amazing educational tool. It's just it would be incredible, like so neat and so accessible to them. But murder.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I
Yeah.
will say this. I saw a comment pop up in the chat, and it's very funny that you say that. It says they said some of the subjects you could teach was history or geography, and it's funny that you mentioned geography because someone did exactly that at Gen Con. They had a whole panel about map building and creating terrain based on like actual geography and geology.
Mhm.
That's the other one I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So you can actually incorporate a little science depending on which physical science you're looking at. Not to mention like you have the like physics calculations, but it's games, so physics doesn't always apply,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that's the thing.
It- that is the thing. It's like certain things might not be applicable, like, but other things like geology, which has to do with like rocks and how they're made and stuff, that can apply.
Yeah.
So and stuff like the way tectonic plates move, for example, because I'm working on an adventure, not a game, just an adventure, that deals with tectonic plates and how they shift and stuff. Things like that you can
Yeah.
incorporate into your games to
It's a
educate
fourth
people
grade
as well.
science standard in California. So there you go. Aim it
Hey,
towards fourth graders, 9 and 10-year-olds.
yay. Huh. Here's how to,
Yeah.
here's all about the tectonic plates and how they move.
Yeah. I
Yay.
think that's the other challenge too, is because things are so split up between the different grades, at least in US education, that
Mhm.
like you were talking about like geology and things like
Mhm.
that. So like a lot of that stuff is hit in like one grade level and then they don't get it again for many years. So it's like if you design a whole game around the specific thing, like if you're designing a whole game around tectonic plates and aiming it for the classroom market, you are aiming for a very small target. You're aiming for 9 and 10-year-olds, at least in California. Because again, every state is also different. So like
Yeah.
fun. Uh, super fun. So you're aiming for 9 and 10-year-olds in California, probably some other country or some other states too, but I know for sure California. It's like, all right, so that's a very specific design prompt, which might be good. Like I can see that, but again, that's really hard to. One, you're gonna rely on teachers to buy it themselves, and teachers already buy too much stuff.
Yeah.
Two, you're never going to sell it to a district. A district is never going to buy something for just one grade level. If they're going to buy a curriculum, it has to be good for all the grade levels, or at least all the grade levels in a span. So like all the elementary schools, stuff like that. So yeah, I there's a lot of thought there. I can talk about this so much. I've thought so much about this. And I feel like if I wasn't so burned out from being a teacher all day, I probably would really dive in deep to designing like game stuff for classrooms. But it's like design stuff is how I get away from my
Right.
my daily life. And I mean
Right.
I love teaching and I love game design and I feel like if I merge the two, I'm just gonna be burned out all the time.
Yeah, you're just gonna be like, oh God, there is no escape.
Yeah.
Uh, but oh, man, uh, you made me have a thought, and then the thought went away because I started laughing. Oh no. But oh man, what was it? It was a really good one too. No, come back,
That's all
brain.
right.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
All right. So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on games. If you'd like to do an interview, Thomas, send me a thing because I would love to talk to you about it. Because I feel like there's so much potential. There's so much potential in TTRPGs, or at least tabletop and education, but it needs to be designed in a very specific, thoughtful way. And I haven't seen anyone do that yet.
I will bring
Yeah.
up one point. I
Yeah.
remembered my thought, and that was regarding creative writing
Oh yeah.
for English class. Definitely some a lot of the card based the for the queen and for the queen's descendants.
Hmm.
Those would be great creative writing like games to give people ideas to get things started, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know,
I
teaching like Decima.
yeah. I
Shout
have
out.
I have had a few teachers say they use Decima in their classroom, and I've had a few parents say that they use Decima to get their kids to do creative writing, which
Mhm.
is cool and very exciting. I've had a couple authors also write me saying they use it to flesh out their thing. So I think that is absolutely that's a very and there are similar things in the I almost said TTRPG, but in the TPT space, which is the teachers pay teachers space, which is the
Yeah.
big website we all go to buy stuff that other teachers have created so that we can like help other teachers when we're trying to get good stuff. So yeah, there's the TTRPG and the TPT space. So there are similar things like that, which is very interesting, but most of that's like print it yourself. So it's not like full card decks because they don't produce anything. It's all PDFs and like files that you can
Right.
print out for your classroom. But I have been tempted. There's been a couple times where I'm like, maybe I should just like pull the name Decima off it and just put the PDF like strip it and make it very plain and like put it on there as like a creative writing like tool.
Right.
But it's so hard in the US right now. Like I feel like anybody who showed up to a class with a tarot deck would like immediately just put a
Yeah,
target on their
set.
back. Yeah, it's so
Mhm.
stressful. Like, it's so stressful.
It is,
Yeah.
but I was just pointing those out because those are great little tools for that. Because I think language
100%.
arts and theater are also great subjects for this kind of work as
Yeah.
well.
I would love to see. I grew up a theater kid. My mom was
Mhm.
the drama teacher that everybody loves.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she taught for 39 years. They actually put her name on the building when she retired. That's how,
Mm.
like the theater at her school is now named after her. So that's not big shoes to fill as a teacher in this family. But she, like, I would love to see LARPs like incorporated um into more like drama curriculum and things like that in a way that like improv games felt very high
Right.
stakes and scary to me. I hated
Mhm.
improv when I was like a theater kid, and I would do anything to avoid it. 100% anything to avoid it. And most of the time that meant I ended up filming stuff because then I couldn't
Mhm.
get called on to play Freeze or any of the other games because I was the one documenting everything. Um but it's interesting now I spend so much time improving. Uh, but at a table it feels different. I feel like if I'd had like a LARP opportunity where I was creating a story and I had like a basis for the improv where it wasn't just like like groundlings where it's like ready go, come up with something
Yeah, right.
funny while everybody watches you. Like I feel
Mhm.
I would have enjoyed improv stuff a lot more. And I think there's a lot of cool space for that.
Yeah, for sure. Like and I agree with you. I think low stakes improv is a nice way to kind of get your feet wet in the improv world,
Yeah.
and a LARP would be a great way to do that.
Yeah,
So,
especially some of these like little 5-person LARPs. Like I could very
mhm,
easily see like a class being split up into small groups of 5 and each of you are playing the LARP yourselves, so
mhm.
it's not like there's a big audience or anything and it's just like practicing those skills. That would be really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you for joining us for season 34, episode 8 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. Were you going to say something?
Nope,
Okay.
I was just listening to you
Oh,
in awe and wonder.
thanks. You're very sweet. Okay. Please support our amazing indie designer of the month, Jacqueline, and you can find them at. I have put it on my other paper. I'm sorry. Rufflejacks.itch.io. And again, that's rufflejax.itch.io. You can also search for them on drive-through. We talked about Skeleton Song, which I'm not a huge LARP person, but that sounds like a LARP that I would be very interested in playing. It's very on brand for me, like feminist fight back ghost LARP. That's very cool. Um, uh, and thank you to our chat mod, James V, and to our amazing Patreons who keep us
Yay.
ad free and independent. You can join their amazing ranks at happyjacks.org/Patreon. I know I owe some nerding outs, and I believe that Ingy's Game is still prepping their recap show, right?
We have like a talk back.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're scheduling it now that my Kickstarter's over, and now that all I have to worry about is teaching kindergarten. I will be catching up on that. So I love you, Patreons. Thank you so much for hanging in there. We have a big list. Actually, people are signing up right as we speak because I posted it before we started the show of all the
Woo.
nerding out episodes that are going to be coming out soon. So very excited. The one I'm most excited about is me and Kai just sitting and like hate talking about the Hobbit movies. Like we like locked it out as just they and I like the Hobbit. Dun dun dun. Because Kai's never actually watched The Hobbit.
Oh
So
no.
what's going to happen is I'm going to badly describe The Hobbit in sequential order, and they're going to react to it. It's
This
going
is
to
gonna
be
be
amazing.
hilarious.
It's going to be amazing. But unfortunately, for this to work, I have to rewatch The Hobbit movies.
Ooh.
Ugh, I know it's going to be wild. But anyway, that's going to be something that gets done soon. It'll be amazing. We also might do one of those where we talk about the Rings of Power, the new trailer that came out.
Oh no.
Yeah, so
I
it'll be
do
amazing.
like Rings of Power, so I feel bad whenever people are talking crap about it. But
I if it wasn't supposed to be Lord of the Rings, I think I'd like it more. I have heard good things. My friend Bear does the music for it, and
mm,
he's like, they worked hard on season 2. I'm like, okay, I trust you.
I
We'll
believe you.
see. I
This
believe
sucks. It's
you.
on you.
Yeah, I'm like, your music is always good for it. So, but anyway, so we'll see how that goes. So happyjacks.org/Patreon. My name is Kimmy.
My name is Vixie.
And today we're going to leave you with a song called Those Who Fight Further, and it's by our friends at Super Mad NES. And they are fantastic, and you'll see our friend Ryan Iyengar just rocking the guitar like nobody's freaking business if you ever go watch any of their videos. So this is them, and it is one of their Final Fantasy covers. And we will see you next week. Thank you all so much. Wish me luck in kindergarten. Okay.
Oh, Godspeed. Bye, everybody.
Bye.